Time now for the Wells Report front page. This brings us to national news. Ohio voters rejected a measure to require a 60% threshold for constitutional amendments. This from USA Today. Ohio called it Issue 1. It failed last night. This, according to Decision Desk HQ, it dealt a blow to Ohio Republicans who wanted to hamstring a November ballot question on abortion rights. Decision Desk HQ is an election results reporting agency. They provide results and race calls for the USA Today network. They called the race at about 8:09 last night with 28% of the vote counted. No vote was leading 68 to 32%. It was an overwhelming victory for those trying to turn aside that particular ballot question. Last night's election was the culmination of a month-long fight that began last year when Secretary of State Frank LaRose and State Representative Brian Stewart first introduced a plan to tighten rules for constitutional amendments. The debate played out in the halls of the Ohio State House, on the campaign trail, and even in the courtroom as opponents tried to stop GOP lawmakers from passing that particular law. The Supreme Court of the United States, this according to AP News, has reinstated the ghost gun ban. It's a regulation aimed at reining in the proliferation of what are called ghost guns. Those are firearms without serial numbers that have been turning up at crime scenes across the nation in increasing numbers. The court on yesterday, voted 5-4 to put a hold on the ruling from a federal judge in Texas that invalidated the Biden administration's regulation of ghost gun kits. The regulation will be in effect while the administration appeals the ruling to the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans and potentially again to the Supreme Court. Chief Justice John Roberts, Justice Amy Coney Barrett joined with the court's three liberal members to form the majority. Justices Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Clarence Thomas would have kept the regulation on hold during the appeals process. Neither side provided an explanation. President Biden designated the Grand Canyon as a national monument. He is dedicating nearly 1 million acres of land near the Grand Canyon as a new national monument. He did this yesterday to protect the area from uranium mining, this according to administration officials. Mr. Biden's visit to Arizona is part of a nationwide blitz by the by the White House to translate key policy victories to voters, including a law he signed last year to inject $370 billion in tax incentives into wind, solar, and other renewable energy sources. This as the 2024 campaign ramps up. Senior cabinet officials are also touring the country this week, highlighting the domestic agenda. This is the New York Times article that says during the first stop of a 3-state tour, Mr. Biden will announce that he's creating a national monument, the fifth such designation of his presidency, in an area sacred to Native American tribes. This also according to American administration officials. The mining is off limits for future development in that area, said Ali Zaidi, Mr. Biden's national climate advisor, telling reporters on Air Force One it's focused on preserving historic resources in the area. Elsewhere in the financial world, U.S. regulators fined 9 Wall Street companies, including Wells Fargo, BNP Paribas, and Societe Generale, $549 million over an employee's use of personal messaging apps to discuss deals, trade, and other businesses. This from Reuters. The penalties mark the latest wave in a sweeping 2-year enforcement probe targeting Wall Street's use of so-called off-channel work communications, such as WhatsApp messaging, and breaches of rules that require firms to retain certain work-related communications. All 9 firms admitted that from at least 2019, their employees often communicated on personal devices using iMessage, WhatsApp, and Signal, according to the SEC, in what regulators said was a pervasive and long-standing violation of record-keeping rules. Spokespeople for Wells Fargo, which agreed to pay $200 million in penalties to the SEC and CFTC, and the Bank of Montreal, which agreed to pay $60 million, said the firms are pleased to have resolved the matter. Spokespeople for other companies either declined to comment or did not respond to requests for comment. This was disturbing. The California Biolab that was run in a derelict warehouse with a garden hose leading to it received U.S. funding. This from the London Daily Mail. A Chinese backed biolab in California was awarded over $1.5 million in U.S. taxpayer cash. This, according to records. The black market lab, which was raided earlier this year, was found to be making illegal COVID and pregnancy tests and storing disease riddled mice and hundreds of samples of pathogens, blood, and other dubious chemicals. Public records showed the company linked to the lab received nearly $150,000 from U.S. government under a COVID era loan program, receiving two separate loans of $74,912 in April. And then in February of 2021, received that same amount again. Universal Meditech was also awarded a massive $360,000 tax credit in 2018 through California Governor Gavin Newsom's Cal Competes program, though UMI's inability to meet program guidelines meant it actually never received those funds. The company, which was based in Fresno, California, went bust in 2022 and was taken over by its main creditor, a company with Chinese ownership, who moved the operations into an unassuming warehouse in a sleepy town slightly south of Fresno called Reedley. In beer news, the heir to the Anheuser-Busch fortune made a stunning decision on the company's controversial ad campaign with transgender activist Dylan Mulvaney, saying the decision was a huge mistake as sales continue to suffer for the company. Bush joined Sean Hannity to discuss his take on the controversy and why he believes the ad would have had his ancestors rolling over in their graves. Quote, "They're paying the price, and I think the company greatly miscalculated what they thought was being inclusive, but was really quite divisive," said Bush. "I think my family they lived by the motto, making friends is our business, and they believe that bringing people together, making it a sociable, fun, beer drinking experience was the way to go. I think my family, my ancestors would have rolled over in their graves. They were very patriotic. They loved this country and what it stood for. They believe that transgender, gays, that sort of thing was all a very personal issue." By the way, while we're discussing beer, Anheuser-Busch is now selling 8 of its beloved brands as Bud Light continues to plague its earnings. This from The Street. Following the layoffs of hundreds of management personnel, Anheuser-Busch is now selling several of its brands to a Canadian company. The brands will go to Tilray. This, according to Get Free Report, its Canadian consumer goods company, publicly traded on NASDAQ, which owns several cannabis and craft brew companies under its brand. According to earlier reports, Anheuser-Busch will sell the following brands to Tilray: Shock Top, Breckenridge Brewery, Blue Point Brewing Company, 10 Barrel Brewing Company, Red Hook Brewery, Widmer Brothers Brewery, and Square Mile Cider Company, along with Highball Energy. A Florida school district has sent a memo to trans students and employees getting news. This is from Newsmax. Transgender employees cannot use the pronouns or bathrooms that match their gender identity due to a Florida law that was recently passed. The state's Orange County Public Schools announced in a memo it sent out this week, according to The Hill. The memo, which illustrates the manifold controversial changes the state's legislature has made to its education system, states that under the law, House Bill 1069, no one is permitted to be required to use a person's preferred pronoun title or pronoun, and students are not to be asked for the pronouns they prefer. Orange County Public Schools, which is one of the largest school districts in Florida, said in the memo the bill states that a transgender employee or contractor may not provide a personal title or pronoun to students which does not correspond to the employee's or contractor's biological sex at birth. Also, this is from CNN. Tampa Mayor Jane Castor made a big catch while fishing in the Florida Keys with her family late last month, spotting and hauling in a package containing 70 pounds of cocaine. This with an estimated street value of approximately $1.1 million, according to the mayor's office. The package was discovered south of Marathon on July 23rd, according to the U.S. Border Patrol. Castor saved the location of the find on her watch as the family hauled the package out of the water into their recreational boat and contacted the Monroe County Sheriff's Office to report the drugs, according to her office. Border Patrol agents with the Miami sector then took custody of the drugs, according to the border agency and the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. And finally, an Italian cheesemaker died. This happened on Sunday after being crushed by thousands of rounds of Grana Padano cheese in the aging room of its factory in Bergamo, northern Italy. Giacomo Chiapparini, 74 years old, entered the aging room to check the automatic robot used to clean the cheese rounds during the aging process. At the time of his death, there were 10 corridors of floor-to-ceiling shelves with approximately 1,600 rounds per corridor. It's unclear what caused the initial collapse, but authorities described it as a domino effect, leading to the cheesemaker's demise.